is what restores your patient's dignity. It gives them the strength and the courage to stand tall again. To the world, you may be known as our spine doctors, but for your patient, you are something far greater. You represent hope. And speaking of hope, let me share something personal. One of my all-time favorite movie is Munna by MBBS. Not just for the laughter, but for the message. Munna Bhai was not just healing people with a medicine. He was healing them with a humanity. It reminded us all that true healing goes far beyond surgery. Healing is hope. Healing is humanity. जैसा कि मुन्ना भाई ने कहा था कि जादू की झप्पी हो या सर्जरी का स्कैल्पेल, दोनों में एक ही बात होती है और वो है इंसानियत. My dear friends, when I was first invited to speak here, I hesitated. What could I, as a builder of enterprises, possibly offer to you, the healers of spines? But as I sat with that question, a deeper metaphor came to my mind. The spine you meant is the ultimate architecture needed for resilience of the human body. And just as you restore resilience to our bodies, leadership is about restoring resilience to the organization. So perhaps today, this shared metaphor will remind us that the spine is both a medical miracle and a corporate necessity for self-belief. It was with this same spine of self-belief that I made my first bold decision at the age of 16. I bought a second-class train ticket and left for Mumbai with no degree, no job, and no backup, except burning desire to define my own path. आखिर में किसी चीज को दिल से चाहो तो पूरी कायनात उसे तुमसे मिलाने की साजिश में लग जाती है. My dear friends, in Mumbai, I began learning to shot and polish diamonds. Each stone I polished taught me patience, precision, and perseverance. My first deal with a Japanese buyer on me rupees 10,000 in a commission. The money never mattered. The moment did. Because that was the moment when I realized that my beliefs would have to always outpace my doubts. And that is the truth about entrepreneurship. It never begins with a grand vision. It begins with a spark of convictions. It begins with the courage to act, even when the future is uncertain. And it begins with the willingness to dream alone and then walk alone before others joins the path. क्योंकि सपने वो नहीं जो नींद में आते हैं, सपने वो है जो नींद उड़ा देते हैं. Just as I was settling down in Mumbai, I was called back to Ahmedabad to help my brother to run his PVC film factory. It was 1981 and I was just turned 19. Managing a factory at this young age taught me what no textbook could. It taught me the resilience needed to manage daily operational challenges. I got exposed to the complexities of managing people, especially factory workers. And I learned the challenges of the license Raj, where just a few companies controlled the landscape and did not want any change. Reflecting back, all of these experiences proved to be invaluable for me, as the most significant decade of India's transformations was just about to get started. And this in turn gave me the platform for transformations that was to reshape my thinking forever. मुन्ना भाई फिल्म की सबसे गहरी बातों में से एक ये थी कि बापू ने कहा था बदलाव लाना है तो सोच बदलनी होगी. In 1985, Shri Rajiv Gandhi, then the Prime Minister of our country, began liberalizing our economy by easing import licensing norms. This was a quite but significant reform. It was as if an economic pressure valve had opened up. We moved fast, becoming early importers of polymers and laying the foundations for our trading house. I was 23. Then came 1991 and India faced one of the darkest ever with just 10 days of foreign exchange reserves left. Under the decisive leadership of the then Prime Minister, Shri P.V. Narasimha Rao, and Finance Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh, India launched a historic economic reset. 3 words define it: devaluations, deregulations, and globalizations. This marked the fall of many major established corporates who had the protection of license Raj. But for us, first generation entrepreneurs, it was the spark of reinventions we had been waiting for. We immediately established a global trading business, which in just 2 years went on to become India's largest trading house. This year was 1993, and I had already turned 31. Progress is never linear, and the biggest opportunity almost always emerge on the other side of the hurricanes. जहां सबने तूफान देखा, वहां कुछ ने अपनी नाव निकाली और समंदर पार कर लिया. Because in moments when others back off in fear, it is those with courage that step forward and build the bridge to the future. This belief in the future would become the operating DNA of the Adani Group. It was this spirit that carried us into 1995. Adani Exports, which you know as Adani Enterprise, went public. The listing came at an extraordinary 14 times premium. I was 33. On paper, it was a moment of a great validation. But within me, it also raised a deeper question. Was I trading value, or was I truly building it? I realized that if we were to shape the future, it was a time to make a bold decision. Trading commodities had given us a momentum, but it was time to build. The very infrastructures that carried those commodities, connected economies, and enabled nations to grow. From that moment on, I decided to build. I decided to chasing the tide and instead become the coastline that shaped the tide. And I decided to stop reacting to change and instead become the foundation that shaped the change. And it all started in Mundra with the objective to build a salt export jetty along with a US partner. To make a long story short, the partner backed out and we were left to build the jetty by ourselves. Around this time, in 1995-96, Gujarat government pioneered a public-private partnership policy for port development, aiming to tap private sector capabilities. We dived right in. Keep in mind, we had never laid a brick before. Almost everyone called it madness. A port in a marshland to be built by a team with a no construction experience. The fact is, in October 1998, our Mundra port commenced op with his first berth, thereby making India's first private port launch. Thereafter, a few years later, the SEZ policy was announced. Once again, we moved fast, while others saw a barren land. We saw 40,000 acres of possibility. My dear friends, Mundra is the manifestations of a belief made real. It is a reminder that vision dares, destiny bends. It is now India's largest multi-cargo port, the world's largest private single-site thermal power plant, India's first HVDC transmission line, India's largest integrated solar and wind manufacturing hub, and a cluster of vital industries that include petrochemicals, copper smelter, solar accessories, and much more yet to come. However, the real story of Mundra is not about what we built. It is more about what it built within us. It gave us the courage to look beyond limits. It gave us the belief that barren salt lands could be converted to a world-class infrastructures. And it gave us the convictions that if we could make it happen once, we could do it again, bigger, faster, and bolder. And what started in our Karma Bhumi has now become a pan-India network of dreams, powering our growth that has made us the world's second largest solar power company and building world largest single-site hybrid renewable park of a 30 gigawatt spanning over 500 square kilometers. India's largest integrated private airport operators with over 25% of India's passengers and 38% of our nation's air cargo. India's largest ports and logistics network, handling 30% of nation's seaborne cargo, most highly integrated energy business, encompassing thermal and renewable generations, transmissions, distributions, LNG, LPG, CNG, PNG, battery storage, hydrogen trucks, EV charging stations, pump hydro, and mining. India's second largest and most efficient cement manufacturer, as well as aerospace and defense, data centers, and real estate. My dear friends, one point I would urge you to keep in mind is that our investments are manifestations of our belief in the future of India, in our energy grids, in our logistics arteries, in our industrial backbone. And it is with these convictions that we are preparing for a capital expenditures investment of nearly 100 billion US dollar over the next 5 years. The scale and pace of this investment and its commitment is unprecedented in India's private sector history. As we do our part for strengthening the very spine of India's rise, a spine that must be unbreakable, a spine that must carry 1.4 billion dreams, a spine that tells the world that India's rise is inevitable. My dear friends, let me now shift gears and speak about the role entrepreneurs like us and potentially like you can play together. But first, allow me to share a deeply troubling statistics. I was shocked to learn that low back pain is now the leading cause of a disability in India, ahead of conditions like a diabetic and heart disease. India is facing a spinal epidemic, a silent crisis far more widespread than a global average is. Nearly 1 in 2 adult Indians experiences low back pain. This is not merely a health issue. It is a national crisis, measured not just in pain, but in lost productivity, mounting healthcare costs, and destroyed dreams. If we are to carry the full weight of our national ambitions, we must first heal the spine of our people. To me, this is not just a call for medical interventions. It is a call for entrepreneurial imaginations. And it must have active participations from your side. So today, I would urge you to consider that one of you build India's first AI-powered spinal diagnostic platform that detects degenerations long before disability. Another reimagines rural surgery, creating low-cost, high-impact mobile operating theatres that bring hope to the villages. The third pioneers, the Spinal Hospital of the Future, a global center for a robotic surgery, regenerative medicine, and a next-gen bio-integrated implants. As an entrepreneur, I can say that the possibilities are endless. But we must have the belief and the audacity to pioneer this change. That is why I urge you to see yourselves as more than just medical professionals. And in turn, here is my promise. The Adani Group stands ready to walk with you, and we have already embarked on our journey. 3 years ago, on my 60th birthday, my family pledged rupees 60,000 crores towards healthcare education and skill development. We did not enter healthcare minds in India. We entered because the momentum was not enough. The pace of change was out of step with the urgency of future demands. As the landscape unfolded, one truth stood out. Healthcare does not need incremental upgrades. It needs a system-wide redesign. Not an evolutions, but a revolutions rooted in intelligence as well as empathy. We saw the opportunity not to compete within the system, but to help reimagine it and build a systems that evolves with science, respond to shifting needs, and harness the full power of AI without losing sight of the human at the center. At the heart of our approach is a comprehensive, multidisciplinary model that breaks traditional silos. Today, clinical care, academic training, and research operate in parallel but rarely in sync. We envision a system where they converge, each reinforcing the other, where adjacent sectors like technology, management, and service are not afterthoughts, but part of an integrated fabric delivering outcomes. Therefore, we are investing in modular, scalable infrastructures of the kind that can expand rapidly in the face of pandemics or emergencies. We are championing the creation of large, world-class healthcare institutes that bring together innovations, patient care, and applied learning under one roof. We also believe that academic training must evolve. So our focus is on fostering doctors who not only heal but also lead with skills in robotics, AI, systems thinking, and healthcare management. Their educations must go beyond anatomy to include empathy, ethics, and enterprise. We also realize that we cannot speak of transformations without making stronger the spine of the systems that comes from our nursing and our paramedical forces. Hence, we are also investing in building top-tier training institutes and establishing rigorous protocols to ensure that quality becomes a habit, not an exception. Finally, we must reimagine how healthcare is financed by placing people and not paperwork at the center. Human-centric insurance products that support and empower families will be a cornerstone of the new healthcare architectures we'll do our best to build. We are here to build India's healthcare for tomorrow and a system that is integrated, intelligent, inclusive, and inspired. And we'll be delivering on this promise through the Adani healthcare temples that are 1,000-bed integrated campuses that we will initiate from Ahmedabad and Mumbai. These are designed to be world-class, affordable, AI first healthcare ecosystem. And we are proud to have the Mayo Clinic guiding us on the design, implementations, and global standards in a medical infrastructure and research. And so, my dear friends, in closing, let me leave you with my final thoughts. If you dream of a medtech breakthrough, go for it. If you can imagine a spinal care revolution, go for it. Minds in India. Let me begin by saluting you for the work you do. Your humanity is what restores your patient's dignity. It gives them the strength, the spine you save today may belong to the engineer who designs tomorrow's bridges, the farmer who feeds our cities, the scientist who invents our next vaccine, or the entrepreneur who builds our next billion-dollar company. So let us stand tall. Let us stand together and let us build the backbone of our great nations. Thank you. Jai Hind. The momentum was not enough. The pace of change was out of step with the urgency of future demands. As the landscape unfolded, one truth stood out. Healthcare does not need incremental upgrades. It needs a system-wide minds in India. Let me begin by saluting you for the work you do. Your humanity is what restores your patient's dignity. It gives them the strength and the courage to stand tall again. To the world, you may be known as our spine doctors, but for your patients, you are something far greater. You represent hope. And speaking of hope, let me share something personal. One of my all-time favorite movie is Munna Bhai MBBS. Not just for the laughter, but for the message. Munna Bhai was not just healing people with a medicine. He was healing them with a humanity. It reminded us all that true healing goes far beyond surgery. Healing is hope. Healing is humanity. जैसा कि मुन्ना भाई ने कहा था कि जादू की झप्पी हो या सर्जरी का स्कैल्पेल, दोनों में एक ही बात होती है और वो है इंसानियत। My dear friends, when I was first invited to speak here, I hesitated. What could I, as a builder of enterprises, possibly offer to you, the healers of spines?